In this episode, we unveil the identity of the person who was with O.J. Simpson on the night of June 12th, 1994, when Nicole Brown-Simpson and Ronald Goldman were bludgeoned to death. Was this individual directly involved, merely an accomplice, or a key witness? If their role was that of an observer, what prevents them from speaking out now that O.J. Simpson is deceased? Join us as we dissect their potential motives and the reason behind their silence. Tune into the mystery to uncover the critical question, what happened that night? Listen in and ask yourself, was this individual a killer, an accomplice, or a material witness? You decide. Welcome to Killer Psychologist. I'm Dana Anderson, a forensic psychologist and your host of the show. Killer Psychologist is for true crime fanatics and anyone intrigued with the dark side of psychology. Welcome to Killer Psychologist Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Anderson. Something I wanted to share today was my dad actually worked for the sheriff's department back in the day for a very brief time before he fell out of a tree and broke his back in a hunting accident. And I remember him telling me stories growing up, how he didn't trust people in law enforcement, and there were some suspicious deaths, and even one story he told me where he felt someone was coming after him to take his life. So he never encouraged me to pursue a criminal justice degree or career. So then that only made me more curious. So when I got my criminal justice degree, I remember my professor telling me, and he was very wise, he was retired as a captain of a local police department. He always conveyed in us as students that the criminal justice system was not a system. And he repeated that over and over, that there's just fragmented pieces that don't communicate to each other. And it's true. I wouldn't want anyone to rely on the justice system solely to save them, because justice doesn't always happen. And O.J. Simpson, the murder trial, we know this. We have a man who got away with murder. We know this. And so that's not justice. That's the criminal justice system, right? But even in civil court, he was ordered to pay civil damages. And did he? No, that's not justice. So let's talk about this. Here we are today. Now O.J. Simpson has died, and now we have more information coming out that I think the public isn't aware of. The behind the scenes, what really happened, why, how does this all play out? So today I have Chris Todd, investigative journalist who's been following this story for, I want to say decades, but he has a lot of information and evidence on this case that he's going to share with us today. Many things that he hasn't revealed before. And Jason Jensen, cold case profiler, who has sent me his investigative report, and it's very thorough. So I know you guys have so much information, and you guys are so articulate, of where you get your sources and information. I know Chris Todd has the discovery file. You have audio recordings, you have evidence, crime scene photos, you have all of that. So I'm so interested to talk with both of you, but I want to start out with Chris, and you can share as much as you're comfortable sharing today. I know we talked about this case on the last episode, but now we're going to go in a little deeper. Tell me a little bit about your fascination with this case, Chris, kind of what got you involved and where you're at now. Also, just your motive for wanting to get this information out to the public. You're so passionate about it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. And, Jason and I will talk about his report. I just reread it last night, and it is thorough. And I was glad to meet Jason a couple of years ago, and because he even knew I needed help on this. So I just want to throw that out there. But I'll give my quick backstory. I mean, I grew up with the case. I was in college when it happened. Like everybody else, I wasn't some unique kid. I was like a sophomore in college. It swept the nation with the hype and the pop culture element. And I grew up with OJ on the Wheaties box. he was a hero of mine, just like Bruce Jenner was. Like, so I was a 70s kid. I'm a Gen X kid. And so I saw OJ, I watched OJ play football. I knew him first as a football player, and he was arguably the greatest running back of our generation. Some say he's the greatest of all time. He's the only running back to run for 2,000 yards in a season, and they only played 14 games. So no one's ever done what he's done, and he was on a bad team. What if he was on the Cowboys or the Steelers? I mean, can you imagine what he would have done? He went to the playoffs one time, and I think he lost to the Steelers, actually. But so his career, he never went to a Super Bowl. He never did all that, but he was marketable. He was bright. He was funny. He was good looking. He had the features and the voice, and he's jumping over the bags. He was almost more of a household name when he worked for Hertz. Okay. He was everywhere. Okay.
Wait, he worked for Hertz?
Oh, he was the spokesman for Hertz. He was one of the first Black spokesmen for a major Fortune 500 company. Absolutely. And that was the Go OJ Go. And they tell these funny stories while he's jumping over the suitcase at the airport. Well, on the night of the murders, he's racing to the airport. So I think God shows us things in very unique ways. And just, you can watch that and you'll be like, and the old lady's like, go OJ, go. And he's racing to get on the plane. Okay. This is really what happened. So anyway, and I watched the pre-trial. It was like the summer and I watched it, but to me, I was bored. I didn't watch trials. I was a sophomore in college. And I don't think I saw too much of the actual trial, but obviously I saw some of it. But I do remember the acquittal. The Bronco chase was a big deal. I was at a party and this came on and I was with some of my fraternity brothers and we were laughing so hard and drinking beers and it just was like the weirdest thing, just seeing that. And it was also a sad story to me. It's kind of like the fall of a hero. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It kind of has this Greek tragedy element to it. So anyway, I had more appreciation later in life than I did as a sophomore. But, and then 7 years ago, I just was lucky to, through a friend of a friend, meet these producers that said they had OJ's Accomplice. And that just started it all. And then to lead into Jason, I'd like Jason to say the same thing of what he thinks too of his history with it. I called Jason a few years ago, just Googled private investigators, and I started calling a bunch of them, and everybody doubted me, and everybody had some excuse why not to tell the story. And I was like, and finally, Jason and I kind of connected on a couple of different levels, and Jason was just like, I'm all in, man. And he's been great. He did a report for free. He wrote 16-page report, and I just reread it last night. So I'd love to hear Jason's thoughts about his history with OJ too,
Right. If you don't mind, I'll just jump right into it then. Back in 1995, the trial, like you were describing, was everywhere. In fact, at that time, I worked at a law firm. As of this May, I will have had 30 years experience in doing legal defense work. So what was unique about my experience with the O.J. Simpson trial is it was the first nationally publicized daily showing of a trial, and we had it playing throughout the offices for every day that we were at work, that we weren't with clients or in trial or hearings or whatever. So it played out daily. We listened to it while we were working, and there would be internal debates among the legal community. Is he going to be acquitted? Is he going to be convicted? And you saw both sides play out. And one of the things that was unique about the trial process is there's two philosophies behind criminal defense work. You can either, A, poke a bunch of holes in the prosecutor's theory and then just rest shortly after the state rests, or you can lay your own case, call your own witnesses, and build a case typically to show innocence or at least to present another case theory. So you can be passive or proactive in your defense of your attorney. What I saw in the O.J. Simpson case was proactiveness. They called their own witnesses. They laid their own theories out. They even raised the issue that there was others, if not just another, at the trial. So what was very unique at the time kind of set the stage, if you will, for decades later when Chris calls me and says, hey, I got a case I'd like to see if you'd be interested in. And, it's a California case. My home office is in Salt Lake, in Utah. I also have an office in Indiana. I've done work for the Delphi defense. So what's interesting is when he calls me, I'm sitting there going, well, I'm limited in what I can do in California. I can't be boots on the ground and do an investigation. But Chris had all this information. He's a wealth of information, of time vault. He's got the discovery files, access to the crime scene photos and things like that. So given the fact that even though I'm a private investigator, where it carries this impression that you do cheater cases only, but that's just a myth. That's a perception portrayed by the public. A private investigator is, more generally speaking, is the private sector version of a government investigator. So we have our hats, right? Not just that we work in an office, but we can do criminal stuff, we can do civil stuff, we can do digital, we can do forensic, different aspects of our field. I have a master's in criminal justice, and so I do profiling. I've sat with law enforcement agencies and done blood pattern analysis training. I've done crime scene reconstruction with law enforcement. So that being said, when I was presented the opportunity to look at the crime scene photos and verify from a photo analysis if there was others involved, I thought, well, gosh, this is one of the greatest cases that have ever hit the airways. And yeah, if I could look at it and corroborate Chris's theories that there was somebody else or others, because sometimes the story comes up that there was more than one.
And I think for Dana too, I want to say to Dana is that's what makes Jason and I unique, because when we team up on something, we have his kind of professional licensed background, kind of by the book. A lot of people say that about him, and that's good. He knows a lot of the law, the jargon, the legal terms, and we jar on stuff like that. And then I'm kind of like the loose cannon where I'm not restricted. If I want to talk to somebody with an alias, I can do it. You know what I mean? Like I can do things that are a little different. But I will say this about the defense team too. I'll tell you this right now. Learning about the defense team on OJ, calling them the dream team, and each person had their own thing. There's like 7 of them. That's how I saw the accomplice, by looking through their eyes. It wasn't looking through the prosecution. I'm going to tell you that right now. I focused a lot more on what the defense team was showing as exhibits, what they were picking apart with EDTA, planted blood, Furman stuff, all these things. They opened my eyes like, oh, wait a minute. Oh my God, there really is somebody else there.
Right. And some of it was sensationalized.
Yeah,
and some of it was, if the don't fit, you must acquit thing really, resonated across the country, and people still bring it up to this day.
That was OJ doing that. That's all.
Right. But the problem that you got is if there was an accomplice, how do we know that glove didn't fit because it was the accomplice's glove that really, should have been brought up? And so the reason why it wasn't raised or defended is the fact that, they were all honed in on this being just a simple domestic dispute turned domestic homicide, because that's a clean kill, if you will. Let's just take out the one likely suspect because we can make that case. But they should have really worked on, he went there with somebody else, or he, left that door open up a little bit. They would have had neutralized the impact of the glove don't fit, you must acquit argument, because it's like, well, it's someone else's glove.
Yeah, Marcia Clark and Darden, and even Darden wanted him to try on the glove, and Marcia said no, and they portray that in the series, the show. And, OJ did a great job of pretending like those are OJ's gloves. I'm just going to say it for the fans out there. I at one time didn't know if they were either. I actually had a doubt myself, They're his gloves. They're driving gloves. They wear very tight. Okay. He also had rubber gloves underneath, and they had been freezing the gloves in the evidence. So as the glove was being frozen and unfrozen and that's why Bob Shapiro tells that story. He tried them on himself and they barely fit him. And he goes, let them try them on. And so Marcia Clark and Darty really were like kind of like the minor league going against the Yankees. And that's what my book talks about, like the Yankees and like you're trying to go up against this dream team. There'll never be another legal team like them ever again. I guarantee you that. Jose Baez is kind of like, and Mark Garagos were kind of the closest thing, right, to the famous defense. How'd you like to have 7 Mark Garagoses on the same team?
Right. It and nowadays they wouldn't even bother to try and do the demonstration because of the forensic nature and DNA usage. Right now, they would test the interior of the glove and simply rule, okay, it's got, this suspect's DNA. That would be then the subject. It'd stay, in an evidence bag, and they wouldn't be allowed to touch it because that would be compromising the DNA nature of that piece of evidence. But clearly, this was 1995 and things were treated differently then, which, we could really bring in based on that
even
example, why like the DNA in JonBenet Ramsey's case is compromised, little things like that, where you allow someone to touch a piece of evidence thinking that it's a wise move, and all you're doing is actually weakening your case and compromising the integrity of the evidence. So that being said, whether it's OJ's glove or not, clearly, that's debated back then because back then he got acquitted. So the question is today, what is the evidence to show that there was an accomplice or a co-defendant, or in my view, as I depicted in my report, a material witness who elected to use his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent? Because given that that is a constitutional right, you can't be prosecuted for remaining silent. You don't have a duty under our Constitution to come forward to implicate others in criminality. That, sometimes that gets you killed, as what we're seeing in the news as of the last couple of days. A John Denton came forward claiming that he was, friends of OJ, and he was threatened by mobsters. They even placed a gun in his mouth and threatened him that he better not say anything about the case. But here we are 30 years later, and he's now singing like a jailbird. Why is that? And that also then brings into question my position on my investigative findings that Charlie Ehrlich was a material witness who, if he believed he had to remain silent or else, like, for instance, if I accuse OJ of something, that he's going to turn on me and say, well, he was there. He's the one that did it. Well, that threat no longer exists. That threat has been neutralized. OJ's gone.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to the mafia stuff, too, that we can go into, and we can touch on some evidence, too. The mafia stuff, really, with Dunton coming forward. And remember, OJ just died. So we don't know who else is going to come forward. But if we use that as a segue, the Daily Mail did a story, the New York Post did a story, and those are the same reporters that blocked our story, literally the same reporters. So I'll call them out. They can come talk to me if they want. You blocked our story, but then when John Dunton said it, you ran. So what's up? Why is it when we said it and we named the guy, he doesn't even name somebody? Okay.
Well, bear in mind,
maybe that's better.
Bear in mind, OJ named him. He just didn't say his last name.
Right.
And that was a year before. Right. That was a year before the memorabilia heist, where he actually was present. So,
but everyone says, OJ said it was hypothetical. Like, that's what I get. All these people write me that, Chris, he said it was I'm like, you guys, put your thinking cap on for a second. He's saying that just to confuse you. And he just throws it off in the wind like, this was purely hypothetical. And he like closes his eyes. And the way his face, you could tell he's lying when he says it.
Chris,
like,
it's a disclaimer. All it is a disclaimer.
Right.
And then he goes into recall. He actually, the terminology and the linguistics behind it, he's reliving the scenario. He's describing what happened.
I did this.
And then,
I did that.
And then at one point, he even laughs.
Right.
And then wants to correct things. Well, now, naturally, all that I've been saying is hypothetical. And the laughter comes across to me.
Says Charlie, because what you're talking about, right at the top, it's in the middle of the interview. It goes on for 45 minutes. And then Judith Regan says, Charlie. And he just breaks out laughing. He can't hold it in. And what that is, and I know what he's doing there too. He's laughing at us. He's laughing at all of us. Because no one's ever said his name to him on camera, ever. He did that in a book. But remember, we wouldn't know Charlie's name if OJ didn't say it. And Judith Regan didn't say it. Okay? So that's, in that interview. But anyway, he laughs again too. Like, this was purely, so I don't want people to think I'm a murderer or anything. And he starts cracking up. Look, he toyed with us. He did. He toyed with the public. And then Rupert Murdoch shelved that interview for 12 years and nobody saw it.
How I would characterize that type of laughter is common when there's interrogations, is you call it duping laughter, where someone is laughing at the situation thinking that they're tricking you into understanding a given fact pattern that they're trying to tell you, but it's funny to them because they're tricking you.
Because they
and
know
I think
you
the
don't
laugh
know. Yeah, they got
that. Yeah,
so they can
he's
laugh.
duping you.
It's almost like on this other case. I won't say the name, but Jason and I are looking into this new case, and there's a guy who jokes about that he did it, and he's on camera going, "Yeah, and they'll never prosecute me for killing XYZ," haha, because he didn't do it. So he can act like he did it. You know what I mean?
And I know I think I know which case you're talking about, but Jason and I have, we've discussed other cases where people that commit murder, killers, all those crimes, they eventually, there's this narcissistic side of them that wants to take credit. We've talked about so many cases like this, Jason, where they taunt the cops, they write letters, they want to get credit, they tell the cops they're doing it wrong, right? And I was watching an interview this morning of some other person who knew OJ was talking about how narcissistic he was and was describing all of that. And as a psychologist who evaluates people like this in jail for murder, and some of the things I see, that they do want to tell you, they do want to get credit a lot of times. People don't always realize that, but they say things they shouldn't say. We've totally talked about this, Jason, so many cases where people couldn't help but reveal aspects later.
They can't.
Right.
He couldn't help but write a book. No one asked him to write a book, right? But this is that narcissistic flair that people have, like that inflated sense of ego too. But it is, they're duping you. He also did get away with murder. So
mob guys do that all the time. And Charlie Ehrlich did this too. When Charlie came to the producers and goes, "I want to tell you a story." See, he can't hold it in either. Okay? He just needed a reason to hate OJ for a minute after the Vegas robbery cost him a bunch of money to get off. He went bankrupt over that. And I can prove it.
Well, that
with
was
records.
That was shisty. That whole situation. Shit situation. That cost him almost $250,000 to get off. So,
okay?
In response to that, money, right? What motivates people? If coming forward now means compensation for your story, right? Like, this is motivating. He wants to get some credit, get some payout.
Well, it's fame and money, right? It goes hand in hand. So the problem and I will say this, I talked to Charlie the other day on the phone. I'll say it here. Okay, we're giving you exclusive information right now.
By the way, Chris, I just friend requested him. Do you think Charlie wants to be my friend on Facebook?
Oh my God, this is so good.
I did.
This is so good.
Because
Hey, guess what? He
Charlie,
loves-
you're invited to talk to me, and I am always
Good.
curious, and I'm a good listener. Apparently,
God
that's what
bless
people have
you,
said on
Dave.
YouTube. But
God
I'm
bless
here
you.
to listen to your story without judgment, and you can say whatever you want to say. But I'm curious, if anything.
Yeah, all his friends are women. When you look at his Facebook page, there's no men.
Yeah, I noticed.
So
They're
you-
all strippers.
None. There's no men.
I saw a lot of strippers.
Because he runs a strip club. He
I
calls it
know.
a night.
I know. I'm not a
He says,
stripper.
I run a nightclub. I'm like, okay, we call it a nightclub if you want. But here's my point. Like, and I won't say too much about what we said on the phone, but and I've had many conversations with him. In the beginning, he didn't know it was me. And when he found out it was me, and there's going to be an article coming out very soon this week about me doing undercover work and talking about me as like kind of a Gary Webb type and my inspiration with journalists and legendary cases and all this. But he didn't know who I was. And when he finally figured, this is a narcissist right here. He is too. When he finally figured it out, he was mad, right? He was mad. The only way he found it out is because I gave him enough hints through him and his attorney to figure it out, right? And then he went off the rails, right? And I said, it took you 3 years to figure it out? And he pretends like he has amnesia too. He's a little older, he's like 70 years old. So he can say like, I don't remember you. Like he does that a lot. And as a narcissist like him, and I've said this before too, I gave him a chance to just tell me the truth. I even said, I'll leave you alone. You tell me the truth, right? You tell me. So I know personally, that's worth $1 million to me. I'll let you walk. Couldn't do it. Can't do it. It's too much ego. Nobody's beat him for 30 years. Who's this guy, Chris Todd? Who are you? Who? He didn't know
Never
I was
heard of him.
partner. Never heard of him. And back then, nobody did hear of me. To be honest, nobody did. So it's kind of a different ballgame now. But he's a total narcissist. Last thing I'll say before you guys say this, with the OJ narcissist too, he joked about hospice. Hospice? Who's saying hospice? The guy couldn't even admit he actually was dying. So he literally told the world, oh, that's a rumor. I don't have prostate. Oh, I just had a little thing. He's dead 3 weeks later. He just could never let anybody beat him. And I'm telling you this, OJ, to the grave, we're going to beat you.
Yeah, narcissists don't typically age well because you decline in functioning. And that's hard if your whole life is, it's based on your image and how people perceive you. It's really hard to come to terms with aspects of aging. I see that a lot in aged out criminals in jail. They start to actually sort of fall apart because they are now vulnerable for being seen as, right, having health problems or having memory problems or having like physical changes in their body or all these things. That's hard for them to come to terms with because they've held this standard of being this facade.
They have their karma too. Like they've done bad things, right? And it weighs on them and they hold it in. And we learn about how stress destroys people. It really does. It affects your body. It actually can make you sick. It can actually kill you. Stress in your, you know what I mean? So I think OJ was punished and he goes to jail for 9 years. Don't forget, that's a long time in jail. He actually did serve time. So he kind of had a traumatized existence. Then he comes out and he goes back on Twitter. And this is what annoys me the most with our media and just like, I won't say people, all people in general. We let this guy come back on Twitter and just run his mouth every day. And people are writing stories about what he says. So do you like the villain? I get it. The Jesse James syndrome. You like the villain. I get it. But what if we told you he had an accomplice who's still alive and said he was? Why would you block that from the public?
Allowing him to come forward and then blocking the story about Charlie or anyone else is really a denial of justice for not only Nicole Brown-Simpson and her family and Ron Goldman and his family, but the community is technically not safe, because if you allow a killer to remain at large, they're free to commit other crimes. Now, again, my position is that Charlie was a material witness. He should just come forward. But contrary to that position that I have, he was interviewed a couple of days ago, the day of OJ's death.
I know.
He came forward and said, I believe my friend was innocent of any crime. So he's actually acting as if he still has a reason to protect the guy, rather than say, whew, thank God 30 years of extortion are behind me. Now I can tell you what happened because I was blackmailed by O.J. Simpson for 30 years. Here's what really happened. But apparently he's not planning to. And you have to question why. If he's innocent, come forward. If you're not innocent.
They're both narcissists, and they beat us all for 30 years. And that's why. So he's going to be like, I don't think OJ did. He had all these pictures of Nicole everywhere. Charlie, you spent Christmases with his kids, with Nicole's children. You helped OJ murder her. You murdered Ron Goldman with OJ Simpson, dude. And you're doing interviews and with Us Weekly and CNN. It's gross. I'm sorry to go emotional. I'm tired. We told these reporters, we told Allison Camerata when she interviewed him after, what? Huh? Who? You know what CNN did? They called the cops on me. They called the Atlanta PD on me. And we're going to talk about Nancy Grace. So when you're ready to do it, we're gonna talk about her.
What do you have on Nancy Grace?
I hope it goes viral, and I hope Nancy sees it, because you're getting exposed.
And I wanted to say what Chris was saying, so just so the audience understands. So there's one theory about Charlie, participating in the stabbings or in the murder, or there's another theory that would be where he was material witness. So, and those are things that we could definitely discuss more of, which is interesting. I find it really interesting that the most recent statement that he makes is, if OJ's passed, there's a lot you could share, right? But then I think the part that's interesting is what is feeding him to remain silent or change the statement. Now we're talking about more people involved, right? Like mob ties and such.
Yeah, it's
like who's controlling who.
It's a double murder. If he talks, if he starts, Jason and I disagree on a lot of things like this, and that's okay. That's what makes a good relationship. But a double murder occurred. So do we want him to start say, well, let me tell you what happened. Come on in. Let me knock. LAPD. Hey, Charlie, we just saw your interview. What's going on? We ask you a couple questions. You see what I mean, Dana? I'm trying to just set you up for that. Like, what do you think he's going to say?
Right. So, and it's the same reason why he backed out of this movie script they were going to make a movie. And then I know you sent me 3 pages of the script, and it's like someone starts talking in this script that's going to be on TV. But now, right, if you're admitting your involvement, or you still can be prosecuted for murder.
See, they tried to hide it. Well, they tried to hide it in a scripted story, right? So like Goodfellas and Henry Hill, we killed this guy and we got him in the trunk. And, you're kind of like, wait, did that really happen? You're like, yeah, it really happened. Like, and so, but they blur that's what Hollywood does. They blur the line of like, is it real? Is it fake? But I'll tell you this, and you continue with that. But now that I look back, either God made Ehrlich come forward or he partly wanted to come forward to almost cancel himself. I call it torpedoing yourself. People say, watch how this guy cancels himself. I always thought that was funny. How Jimmy the Greek canceled himself when he did this interview. I just watched this. But so Ehrlich, whether God did it or the victims pushed him or his parent, mom or his dad told him, nudged him, well, all right, I'll come forward kind of, right? And he torpedoed himself. I basically kind of put the death knell, that's a bell, but death nail, whatever you want to say. But but go on. It's like mind bending, this whole situation.
Well, the script that was going to be this, I don't know, movie, docuseries, what have you.
It was a movie.
Kind of
scripted.
Okay.
Movie.
Well, it's very revealing, but it kind of mirrors what OJ did with his book, these hypothetical.
But OJ, you can't touch.
See?
Yeah.
The difference is the difference is OJ, because of a failed conviction, has immunity forever. It's called double jeopardy. He's immune from prosecution, even if he confesses it now, even if the evidence is so overwhelming that only he can be, convicted. But because of a failed prosecution, he is forever protected under our Constitution. Whereas Charlie has never seen a courtroom on the matter, so they could even scapegoat him at this point and bring him in and say, we're only going to prosecute you because item 27, your hat was left in the Bronco, and the Bronco has two rooted hair that matches your DNA. That was the getaway vehicle that all of Nicole's blood was in. We're going to arrest and convict you now because now we have 21st century technology. And we can prosecute you today with a stronger case than the case we built against OJ in 1995.
But here's the best part too. This is for Dana, okay, and for Jason, but mainly for Dana.
Oh, here
so
it
I
comes.
watched CBS.
Okay.
So I watched CBS last night, and they air this special about OJ. And I think they used some old footage. It just came out. You can go watch it. It's 3 days old. And CBS is, they're OJ and they're flexing their chest and they're like, oh, we did this. And they show the police and a detective walks out. Can't make this up. He's pushing a cart of the boxes and he's like, do-do-do. And he comes out and he opens up. He goes, if somebody brought us something, we'd look at it. This case is still open. You ready for this? Drum roll. That cop is the one that met with me, literally. And he did nothing. And he went on national TV and looked dead in the camera, goes, somebody brought us something. Oh, I didn't bring you something? What happened to Charlie Ehrlich? There's a tape. Why didn't you go get the tape? Oh, we need some probable cause. What about me? What about little old me? So that's what I saw last night. And it's just like, oh my God, these people cannot get it right. They can't get it right no matter what. And I don't think he'll ever be arrested. I'll just throw that out there. I believe the LAPD will never reopen OJ. I don't care if they get Ehrlich's entire tape. They are not going to play the Furman tapes again. They are not going to go back through all that evidence again. There is no way.
Maybe someone brought them a little something.
Yeah, maybe. That's very possible. Or it's a threat. Like, hey, just get OJ. Don't worry about Joey and Charlie, right?
It's a stick and a carrot.
Yep.
That's how things work.
Well, silver or lead, right? Silver, money, or lead, the bullet. It's one or the other.
So many questions. But I know at some point, Charlie, and I want to call him Charlie the Tuna, just because
Charlie Tuna was his name when he was the biggest Quaalude dealer in America. And they used to call him Charlie Tuna. You got to be careful because there's two Charlie Tunas. There's another Charlie Tuna mob guy, but Ehrlich. That's what Nancy Grace calls him. We got to get to Nancy.
All
Please
right, get to Nancy.
Please let me, after Dana
Okay,
says what she's saying, but please, Nancy, you're mine. I can't wait.
Well, I just wanted to ask, because I know she
And I know
prosecuted
Jason's getting
him.
nervous. Jason, we can still work with her. I'm not gonna torpedo her, but I'll do it nicely.
I don't understand why you say it like that, because I don't think that you have anything that implicates Nancy in any way for any reason. She just was she was just familiar with Charlie back in the day because she prosecuted him. He actually reveres or has high.
Oh, he says he made her famous.
Right. There you go.
That's what he says in his script and his tape. But I got something new on Nancy, and I can prove that Nancy is blocking the Charlie Ehrlich story as OJ's murder accomplice from the public, and I can prove it.
How? Lay it out.
But why? Because
I
we
can't
know
even say it today. I can't say it today, but I will prove it to you.
So she prosecuted Charlie back in the day, but what's her involvement with him after that?
So,
he says he made her famous. Is he saying he made her famous because he was famous, a big deal? She prosecuted.
He really
so she
wasn't.
got.
He really wasn't famous. What he's saying is in 1985, when he gets busted, she's a new prosecutor. It's like one of her first cases. So she writes in her book, Objection. She writes her book and says, one of my first cases was against this guy named Charlie Tuna and Bob Fear, the lawyer. He was this kind of known lawyer, F-E-H-R maybe, Fair, Bob Fear. And he rep mob guys and criminals. So Nancy was going up against him. So and Ehrlich knew this. So when she says in her book, For the Love of Money, the chapter in Objection, she goes on this whole tirade. I'm going to put this guy away. This is a bad guy. The guy had 1 kilo of cocaine. 1 kilo. Nancy is a dramatist. I can barely stomach her. And we talked about Dana off camera about some of the things that have happened to other people based on Nancy's statements. Remember? I can barely deal with her anymore. And I'm willing to help her but now that I know she's blocking the story, I'm going to get her. I'm going to. I'm tired. But my point is, she describes the law. Oh, and he had 5 assault rifles in his safe. And we found $6 million cash and the place was booby trapped. Okay, great, Nancy. Cool. And that's why Ehrlich takes it and sticks it in her face. And he goes, I made her famous. That's what he means. She was the first case she ever busted somebody like that.
Sometimes people take a plea bargain and there's more that.
He got 23 years for coke. And this will sound weird, he's a white guy. So how many people get 23 years for a kilo of cocaine? You don't. You do not get that charge. Ben Kramer's sitting in jail for life for weed. And he didn't kill Don Arenal. I'll say it right now. He didn't. So they had these special, he got out after 7, and Charlie plays a wizardry with this. It's really hard to know when he got out of jail. Super hard to find the date he got out. So he does 7 years, and lo and behold, when he gets out in 93, he meets OJ Simpson through Joey Ippolito. And here he goes, fresh out of jail, goes and catches 2 bodies. So the guy's a lifelong criminal. So I don't know what everybody's protecting him for and hiding stories about him. But let's get to Nancy.
Yeah, the one thing that she doesn't know is he actually credits her in the script that if she was the prosecutor on the case, that OJ would have been convicted, right?
That's true. Jason's right. He says in the script, because he thinks of her as such a hard-nosed person and prosecutor, he goes, if Nancy Grace instead of Marcia Clark, they would have wired OJ up right there and fried him. Man, I'm telling you, in this screenplay, they mess with your head so crazy when they use the plaintive wail. When Pablo Fengve set up the trial, I heard a dog's plaintive wail at 10:20 p.m. First of all, you didn't. It was actually 10:35 or later. He had the time ring, and I can prove that. They put it in the script. We hear a dog's plaintive wail. It's sick. It is, Dana, first of all, I'm not going to say I leaked the script. The source leaked the script to the media, okay? But if you want a copy of it through the Whistleblower Protection Act and the SHIELD law, I will have the source send it to you.
It sounds fascinating. I know the title of it. I don't know if I'm
There's
allowed
two
to share
titles,
that.
actually. See, they lie about everything's a lie in this. Everything. Oh, it's called Juiced. Well, there's another title too. The mob guys do this. It's all smoke and mirrors. You don't know if they're coming or going. I give them credit, give them respect. Like Joe Bonanno, Bill Bonanno. We knew who killed JFK, but I can't tell you. They write that in their books. Man of honor, bound by honor. Well, we know Meyer Lansky knew who killed Kennedy, and so did my dad, Joe Bonanno. But I can't tell you. Why? Why not? You see what I mean? Like it's for me, last thing I'll say, I don't want to dominate the conversation. Let me just say this real quick. Nancy knows Ehrlich is OJ's murder accomplice, and she blocks the story. She has blocked multiple people who have come to her. I know they have. I can prove it. And that's wrong. I like to use sports as an analogy for what I do. My book talks about this too. I was an athlete. I grew up around sports. My dad was a coach. This was like my life is sports. Okay. At a poker table, there's an etiquette. You show your cards to one person, you show them to everyone. And if you don't, you are booted off the table. You show one, you show all. In this situation, I'm holding cards that I've shown a couple people. We need everyone to see those cards, okay?
And so I just wanted to ask you about the motive of certain media outlets, and you mentioned Nancy Grace for why they wouldn't want to share that information.
I'll have Jason answer that. Jason, why do you think Nancy Grace, Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, I could name 50 reporters, I won't say their names, Matt Gutman, I'll say his name. Why do you think Matt Gutman blocked the story, Jason, and Nancy Grace?
Well, I don't really have a reason to know. I haven't had conversations with them. It would only be speculation. And I think what that speculation might be is if they've already come forward with an opinion to the public, they're not necessarily willing to counter that opinion previously said with a new one. But I don't know that. Off camera, I would love to hear why you think that Nancy's blocking it. But I think fundamentally from our conversations where all of these people have been hesitant to air it, publish it in the newspapers or the media outlets, is up till this point, the reason is the fear of being sued for defamation.
Okay, but Jason, let me ask you this. Why do they block the lawsuit? If the lawsuit in the 11th Circuit Court has been in the court system for 2 years, why is not one major mainstream outlet printed one word? It's in the wire. It goes through the wire.
Right, I understand. I've had conversations with...
Even if it was fake. No, let me ask you this. Even if it was fake, like Norman Pardo and Bill Deere and Glenn Rogers did it, and Jason Simpson, why does NBC run a story about them? Why do they let them talk?
Right, and I've had conversations with respected personalities, in the marketplace, the true crime marketplace, and I've said, hey, this is the greatest Accomplice story out there. Why can't you cover it? It's like, well, I can't touch it. And I think it's because their executives say, it's too risky. It's too, you're going after an icon that half the country thinks he's innocent, half the country thinks he's guilty. But I've noticed a change in the public recently since he's dead, that all of a sudden there's a lot of this social media characters of OJ where
it's opening up now.
Yeah, where now people are less willing to defend him because they had a motive themselves. They're trying to rub elbows with him. Yeah. They're trying to use or exploit his fame for their own benefit. But now people are coming out of the woodwork saying, like I saw a meme yesterday where OJ was at the gates of heaven talking to St. Peter, and St. Peter's saying, hey, you're going to be judged on your record, as a human. And he says, "Oh, is Johnny Cochran available?" So, which we know Johnny Cochran died, preceded OJ's death. So he's thinking maybe Johnny Cochran will defend myself in front of God Almighty, the judge of all, and get me into heaven after all. So he wasn't even cold yet. And I saw memes being shared about, a modified photo of a Bronco that looked like a hearse and things like that. So people are turning against him now that were either silent before or embraced this notion that he was innocent. And really what it was given the fact that you had a criminal conviction that there was an acquittal obtained, and you had a civil proceeding where he was found liable and hit with hundreds of millions of dollars for a judgment. How could that exist? And the reason is because the burdens of proof are different. So you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt in the criminal case, which your argument would be they failed to meet that high threshold, while at the same time, with it being a preponderance of the evidence in the wrongful death suit, they convinced the judge that there was enough to implicate him for the wrongful death. So he's in that gray area between the two of them. Can't prove him 100% guilty, but you can prove at least he's more than 50% guilty.
Well, there's a lot coming out because even my kids are kind of like teenagers. And the other day I'm listening and they're on TikTok and I hear OJ Simpson and they're watching videos and they're like, "Dad, isn't that the case you do?" I'm like, "What are you watching?" They're like, "Oh, OJ's all over TikTok." And I'm like, "What?" So it, like Jason's saying, maybe this is going to, the John Dunton, the other mob guys, the old mob guys, maybe they are going to come forward and be like, "I knew what happened. I couldn't say anything." Anyway, look, we could beat a dead horse with a lot. My point is with the news people, news executives, all I really wanted for them to do was cover the lawsuit. I get it if they don't want to say, Charlie Ehrlich's a murderer, we're going to get sued. Oh, by a murderer? The judge is going to grant him money for being involved. Come on, man. But they could have done the lawsuit. They could have said, "Hey, is anybody paying attention? Is this guy real?" So, and look, Charlie sued Bob Norman in the Miami New Times. And even in that article, Jason knows too, they question it. They don't even say it. So they try to go by defamation by implication. That's kind of a part of the rule, right? If you're implying it, a mysterious trip, the improbable story. And I warned Charlie not to sue her. I did. And he told me that, you know what? So he's had many chances, but we'll see. I think, look, 30th anniversary is coming up in about 2 months. That could be the real backbreaker right there. So
where are we at with that lawsuit right now? Is he hoping to get...
give him the update. Jason can give the update.
I looked up the case proceedings. There was really, the last time that there was activity was in 2023. And because of the inactivity, there was a motion for summary judgment that was filed that was denied. So since then, no further activity, which you would think that by now someone would have set it for trial. If you're a plaintiff suing a defendant for defamation and you got allegations of millions of dollars on the line, and the defense tried to get it dismissed and failed. And so basically the premise is the judge saying, as a matter of law, I can't rule in your favor. This is a trial issue. So if you're going to get your payday from trial, why didn't you not schedule your trial?
Well, tell him the flop. Yeah, give him the flop.
So basically where we're at right now is the judge, in order to clear the calendar, because, you can't leave a case pending forever, the judge has filed a FWOP, which is for want of prosecution. Basically, in other jurisdictions, it's an order show cause why it shouldn't be dismissed. So the judge levied that notice in February and set the matter for a hearing in May. So if they do not come forward, either the defense or the prosecution, the judge is likely just to dismiss the matter. So if you were defamed and your chance to prevail and earn a bunch of money is trial, why are we sitting here waiting 12 months?
And they're going to wait till the last minute. Yeah, they're going to wait. It's like May 23rd. They're going to wait till midnight on the 22nd. Like, this is it's just another, like, ruse by the dynamic duo. One is gone, okay? But this is what they do. They're jerks. I'm sorry to say it like that. They're just, and Charlie wanted to put this over the reporters' heads, so when they Google something, they see there's a lawsuit. He thinks he's winning. And to be honest, it is hanging a dark cloud over things. So when that thing gets tossed, you think Charlie Ehrlich would sit in the blue chair and get cross-examined, and then they're going to take his tape and hit play in front of a jury because the tape is in discovery because I beat him in a motion to compel. They had to hand it over. They hid it from everybody for a year. Took a year. The judge, and I have a funny story about it too, but the judge was like, yeah, hand over the tape into discovery. And the producers were like, oh, well, don't I get an appeal? Yeah, sure. Go ahead. What do you want to do? Bang, bye, get out, send the tape out. It's like, we have to balance the scales between good and evil on this planet. I'm sorry. There's a lot of bad things that happen. And when we have an opportunity to do something good, we have to do it. And that's why these judges are not going to side with him. And no jury's going to side with him either.
Right.
Wow. It's like, people like this, they just run their whole life.
And they damage people and they hurt people. And the Goldmans, now they're coming out in articles saying, Malcolm Laverne said, we're giving the Goldmans zero. They're getting nothing. And he's like making this like hard point. This was their son. This was their brother. That got killed for nothing. And this scumbag lawyer and now today he came out, he's trying to soften his stance. Because you know why? Because he got a bunch of blowback.
Obviously, he has no skin in the game. Why take such a hard stance that, they're going to get...
Because he's the executor. OJ made him the executor. So he's high on the hog. He's getting torpedoed any minute. I will find a way to torpedo him.
Wow.
I will go Chris Todd on him. It's just a matter of time.
I'm glad to hear that Chris Todd is a verb now.
Unfiltered Chris Todd.
I'm just so, you guys have no idea. I love both of you guys. What I'm saying is I wake up every day and I feel like I'm living a nightmare. Like I've been living this for 7 years. And every day I'm story. Cato's on CNN running his mouth. Tom Lang. And I'm just like, I need a vacation probably. I don't know, but we'll see what happens. Thank God we can do things like this, but it's just so frustrating to see the same Daily Beast, the same reporters blocking it, Daily Mail, New York Post, LA Times. It's just, I don't know if God's punishing me. I don't know. Maybe I'm cursed for being involved. I don't know.
Hey, vacation. I heard they have some good strip clubs in Florida.
I was waiting for it. I was just waiting. I was waiting.
You set me up. Anyone listening?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if we all want to take just a casual trip and
to Miami,
just have a little conversation. Anyway, so Charlie's welcome to come on the show. Nancy's welcome. I'm always interested in hearing people's perspective on...
Jason, let's take a pool. What's the chances of Nancy Grace or Charlie Ehrlich coming on Dana's show?
Well, I think Nancy's busy, but as far as Charlie goes, I'm
0-0.
I think
0-0.
Yeah, I think Charlie will avoid it too.
0.
Because your Chris Todd verb is hanging over his head.
But I'll tell you this, Dana. You should try to talk to him because I'll tell you this. I think he will talk to you. I'm not saying in your show, but I think I've had other people go to him. He's had long conversations with people. I had a couple people, they talk about the old days and they talk about Trump. Stay on. Stay on. See if you can just, I'm not saying you're going to record him, but I'm saying, look, he's a living piece of American history. He is. And really, when you look at it, and even the producers discussed this with me too, OJ didn't trigger this. Charlie did. OJ was getting on a plane. OJ was chipping golf balls. His bags were already packed. That's why Alan Park said, I saw bags on the bench. When he pulled up, the stuff was already there. He wasn't planning to do anything until Joey Ippolito and Charlie Ehrlich decided to make a move. And it set him off like a time bomb. It's just, so it's like, I don't want people to,
when you say making the move, you're talking about collecting the cocaine debt?
Yeah, or just whatever they're doing. Like, you're going to go to some famous guy's house at 10 o'clock at night. And even if you believe OJ's book when they say, I forgot why Charlie had been by Nicole's, but he told me you wouldn't believe what's going on over there. And I said, whatever's going over there has got to stop. And what he's saying is that Charlie went to dinner and overheard these guys talking about Faye Resnick and Nicole when they were in Mexico. And I guess things got pretty kinky. So let me get this straight, Charlie. So you would drive to O.J. Simpson, the greatest running back in history, who could probably beat the crap out of you in 7 seconds if he wanted to. You're going to roll up to his house at 10 o'clock when he's getting on a red eye, and you're going to lay this on him at 10 at night on a Sunday night. You're just going to show up. And this is what he does. He did this before. He got arrested for assault, stealing drugs from a guy. And he tells about it in the script. And he saw the shoes and he looked at their shoes and those are cops. And hey, can we talk to you? Like, they flew down from New York. You know, it's like, man, so my point is, like, yeah, they set it in motion. They set OJ off, you know?
Right. If Charlie hadn't come over to OJ's that night, you're saying that he would have hopped on this flight to Chicago and Nicole and Ron would still theoretically still be alive.
And I'm not saying OJ wouldn't kill them like 3 years later.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know. Domestic violence, people can snap but I'm saying in that night, yes. And I hate to say this, I don't know if it'll sound sad for people. If Ron Goldman was not there, I do not believe Charlie and OJ would have killed Nicole. I don't think they would have. OJ's kids were home. They were home. How does he know they're asleep? He never went in the house. Nobody went in the house. Goldman sets OJ off too. So this good-looking guy dressed up, holding this white envelope. There's rumors that they're dating, right? Nicole comes out, she's barefoot in the skimpy little black dress. And he sees this.
Well, he knew that she had other interests because he had bugged her. He was stalking her. He was watching her. He was jealous. And
he was mad at Keith. And he was, and I'll say this too real quick. I'm going to say it because Marcus Allen lied and AC lied. And I know these guys will probably be mad at me. OJ told Nicole, if you ever sleep with Marcus Allen, I will kill you. And she slept with Marcus Allen. And Marcus Allen lied in his deposition, saying he never had a relationship. They took a photo of him at Tony Roma's with Nicole. And Nicole told OJ they had slept together. Okay? And so I believe, because they have this Kardashian Bill Waz stuff, everyone always talks about this. There is some truth to that. But I think the Marcus Allen thing was absolutely the final straw with OJ. Marcus Allen was like mini OJ. He looked up to OJ. They both went to USC. Okay. Marcus almost surpassed OJ. He won a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like so anyway, there was a lot of things going on, and he sees Goldman, he sees Nicole, Charlie's with him, and he's got OJ or Joey hanging over his head. It's a perfect storm. He is beyond enraged. Okay. So it's a shame. And the only reason Ron Goldman was there because Judita Brown, she dropped her glasses on the sidewalk outside of Mezzaluna. If they never fell off or out of her pocket, he'd be alive today. So it's just, fate is cruel, you know?
So this movie script, we don't, you know, I'm interested to get it.
I can talk to the source, and under the whistleblower protections and under the SHIELD law, there is a crime that has been committed, and this source has agreed to whistleblow on a murder case because I've already been taken into court in front of a judge talking about like, well, they call me a sociopath to the judge's face in court. It's on the record. He's a sociopath. He has to be stopped. He did this to other people. And I wanted to say, do you guys want to talk to the families that I've helped? Their children's killers find closure and know who killed their children or who kidnapped their children, or other murder cases. I've worked with families for the last 8 years. What about those people? Well, he's out of control and he makes up stuff. And well, there's a crime. I'm whistleblowing on you. I'm sorry. And you're holding a tape of evidence of a guy confessing to it. You're in the wrong, not me. And that's why the judge stood up, turned her back, and walked out on him as he was mid-sentence. Okay? Because they're not having it. They're not. They're not stupid. The truth has to come out. We're not going to silence people because they whistleblow on somebody who did something very bad. That's not how our system works, you know?
Right. And given this scenario that you just described is the whole reason why I was motivated to issue my report and get permission to declassify it so that I could show it online, because, you know, the Whistleblower Protection Act was created for a reason, and someone seeking protection under that, revealing the evidence of a crime is fair ground for us to report and share. And it has been a shame that for all these years, you've been blocked getting the story out, and that news outlets and you know, TV shows or wherever this has been taken to has been reluctant to come forward. But it's weird that they're not interested in airing it now.
Yeah, we'll
see what
people
happens.
Like Dana. No, it's good. It's good we're doing it. And so I just, you know, it's a frustrating journey, but I can at least kind of calm it down and just hope someone does something. And the LAPD, you know, they have ways. They work with Hollywood too. The LAPD does TV shows. They're consultants. Where do you think they blow things up in downtown LA? How do you think they do that stuff? I worked in the business, and my name was on permits with the cops in the station because I was in charge of the set pretty much. So they're together, and I think, look, I'm not saying never. They may do something. I've come forward. There's other interviews that are coming out. There's articles coming out. I'm sure, hopefully, I'll do more stuff. I've tried to hand this to people. I don't have to be the one to do it. I'm saying let's somebody do something.
Chris, do you ever think about making your own movie?
Yeah, but for me, you know, I'm not doing anything on YouTube. I'm not going to go produce and put it in a black hole. This story is big enough for a network studio to do it. That's their job. That's their industry. It's for them. When I gave the news story, I gave it for free. In the beginning, I did ask to be hired as a consultant for protection, so I'd have a lawyer and I could pay the fees. Okay? There's plenty of money in Hollywood for them to either hire consultants or hire someone like Jason Jensen to vet it more, and that's what they do. You don't think 2020 and 48 hours at Dateline, you don't think they pay money to fly the people and interview? It's just, you should see some of the things these people have told me. Like, it's insane. Like what ESPN has told me is foul. I'm not going to say their people's names. The president at the time did go to bat for me. I won't say his name, so I'm not going to bash them. But the way they treated me at ESPN was unbelievable. And same with the LA Times. Unacceptable.
Wow. Well, I'm sure a lot of people are going to have questions out there. We're going to post this video on YouTube, and that gives people the opportunity to comment, have questions. I always encourage people to be critical thinkers and ask questions, be curious about things. And I really appreciate both of you today and your input.
Well,
Jason.
And my biggest concern about this case kind of spills over to other cases, you know, because I'm a co-founder of the Cold Case Coalition. And that is, boy, if you know that something's happened in a crime that's unsolved, please come forward. And, you know, the family deserves justice. So here we are, we're talking about, Nicole Brown-Simpson's family needing justice and Ron Goldman's family needing justice. But these are, high profile names. We're talking, there's millions of people out there that don't have that name recognition. And we all want to see justice. And if we can't get justice for, and the story like this can't come out on such a big case, what's the chances? What's the hope for these smaller cases?
I want to say lastly, too, I do want to say this. Thank you to Dana and thank you to Jason and to the audience. If you have a case and you want me to look at it, I will look at it for free. I do not charge anything. God has asked me to do these cases, and I truly believe victims, when they come to me, I have over 15 cases right now. I believe the victims have nowhere else to go, and they usually end up to me or someone like Jason. Feel free to email me. You'll figure out who I am, where I am. My other videos say my email. Dana will give my email out. Absolutely. And everything I do is for free. It is for victims. I think every victim should be listened to no matter what. And obviously I can't respond to every single person, every case. There has to be some way to get in there. Some cases are almost unsolvable and sometimes the killers are dead, but I just want to put that out there and say thank you for the platform, but please feel free to even have a discussion with me. I talk to people all the time and I'm grateful for that. And I think I have to give back. A lot of times people think I'm kind of selfish and maybe I am, but that I have to do that sometimes. So my way to give back is I'm always willing to listen to people.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I've had a few people reach out to me on cold cases, and one of them I promised to take on the air, and it's somebody that nobody knows, long forgotten, small town homicide. There's a handful of cases, but I do want to use this platform for good. And, there are missing people, and we can put this out there on the air. Somebody knows something. We can work together. We're providing services for free. And there's some wonderful private investigators out there that I've met. Jason, of course, and a few other most recently that I've been connecting with. And I'm like, wow, who a lot of them have nonprofits and they do a lot of pro bono work, but any money they get helps put into these investigations. So I would just encourage anyone that that financially is able to and has an interest in helping solve cold cases, donate to Jason, donate to any of these private investigators who have a nonprofit. And if there's a specific case you want us to work on, that you want to see justice brought about, we're happy to talk about it on the air. And so thank you so much, Jason and Chris, for your time today. Thanks for listening. Killer Psychologist video episodes are now on YouTube, and you can post your responses there. For episode details and merch, check out killerpsychologistpodcast.com. And for forensic services, you can book online at psychologydr.com. That's psychologydoctor.com.